Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope you all had a wonderful Tuesday as we get into some Nuggets talk because, of course, the second half of the season is about to be underway for the Denver Nuggets. And the West isn't as looking as easy as it was last year. There's a lot that the Denver Nuggets are going to have to do to, one, get the number one seed, but two, even make it to the NBA Finals. And the perfect person to talk about that with is our very own Jake Shapiro.
Hey, I'm here.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm really excited for the second half of the NBA season, especially because...
Dude, I'm ready.
Yeah. I mean, the Nuggets are really, really good again this year. But like you kind of mentioned, there's some teams out west that are definitely not to be trifled with this year.
In your eyes, who is the biggest threat? When you're looking at, we're talking about Minnesota or the Clippers, which team do you identify as like the biggest threat?
Regular season wise or postseason wise?
Let's go regular season and then we can go into the postseason because I think there's a lot of factors that will play into the Nuggets in the postseason.
Yeah, I think regular season, I think Oklahoma City is probably going to finish with the top record in the West.
Okay.
They are just rolling. They're so deep. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander might steal the MVP from Nikola Jokic if they do indeed get first place. Chet Holmgren has been a perfect fit on this team. Jalen Williams, brother of Cody on CU, is a fantastic third option. Josh Giddey's even kind of gotten better throughout the course of the season on the court. And Lou Dort is just a perfect piece as well as, you got guys like Kendrick Williams and, you just picked up Gordon Hayward. I think they're going to be a really strong contender to finish off the regular season. And they've shown throughout the course of this regular season that they have made that leap and they're on that top tier of teams.
No, I'm 100% with you. I think it's going to be fascinating to kind of see how it plays out. I always get a lot of crap from people because when I go into the season for both the Avs and the Nuggets, until All-Star break, I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, like love this unless they start off really hot and go undefeated or, only lose one or two games. But it's really after All-Star break when things start to get intense and now you start really paying attention because that's what's going to, eventually lead into the playoffs. And for the Nuggets, with them having so much success, and I think that they are, I'm not sure are they still the betting favorites right now to win another NBA championship?
No, that would be Boston.
Okay, yeah. Right.
So,
how could I forget? Out of the East, of course.
Yeah, so the Nuggets, I think the Nuggets might actually be behind the Clippers in the West right now. It kind of changes the day right now. But yeah.
I feel like they still never get the respect.
People have quickly forgotten that the Nuggets have won. I saw some clips at the All-Star Game weekend about guys that could lead their team to an NBA title. It's really only the guys that have done it before, and Nikola Jokic didn't make that clip. And then people are talking about the Nuggets as if they're not the reigning champion. So it was nice that we got the reminder when Jokic was introduced at All-Star Weekend, the reigning champion Denver Nuggets. But I knew, and I tweeted this like 2 days after the Nuggets won, I'm like, it was great celebrating this, but I know come next May, people are going to just forget that the Nuggets won, and that's okay. We have it. The national media doesn't need to pay attention to it. Really, the only teams that resonate besides the 2008 Boston Celtics are teams that win multiple championships.
Yeah.
So that's okay, and maybe the Nuggets will get there. That's what Calvin Booth is trying to do in designing this team, is win multiple championships. But you said something that I do think I disagree with, which is in the NBA, the season really heats up in the second half. I would say the season is really at a crescendo in the regular season in January, and the Nuggets played their best basketball in January. Last year in the second half, the Nuggets did not care. They did not try. They didn't need to try. This year, they're going to need to try and not rest their players, which I think is going to be really interesting to watch, especially in the next 10 games.
You and I had so many conversations last year, right, about as we were approaching the playoffs and how easy it was going to be and these teams that they were going to run into. And, we thought that the biggest hump was going to be, the Phoenix. And then we were like the Lakers. And as soon as they just started kind of rolling over these teams, like with the Phoenix, Suns series being the longest one, it was like, all right, they're going to win. Like, no offense to Miami Heat. It was kind of just like, they're going to win this championship this year. And it feels very different this year, which is, one, a good thing because we're going to get some really good basketball, but you're also going to be on the edge of your seat like, oh my gosh, I can only hope that my team can do this.
Yeah, no one was more confident than me last year. I was telling you that every series the Nuggets were going to win in 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And the only one I was wrong about was Phoenix.
Yep.
I was so confident, in fact, that our sister station, Arizona Sports, kicked me off of radio in Arizona because they're like, we don't need the Nuggets guy anymore. This is ridiculous. He doesn't take us seriously, because they weren't to be taken seriously,
Yeah.
and the Nuggets proved that. So this year I would tell you that there are 3 teams.
Wait. Did they actually, were they just like, all right, we're going to hang up the phone on you right now?
They were like, I said something and they're like, all right, we're going to head to break. And then they didn't invite me back. So
you knew. You took it a little personal.
I knew. And that's okay. Like, it's their market, but they wanted me on for my Nuggets opinion and my like unbiased opinion, which was that the Nuggets were a far superior team to the Suns last year. And I was right.
Yeah.
This year, I'll tell you that there's 3 teams on the Nuggets level in the West, if not better. And I'm not sure if they're better or not. I'm telling you honestly. Minnesota looks fantastic. They've figured it out. I'm taking them seriously, particularly because they beat the Clippers the other night, and that proved a lot to me. The Clippers have lost like 6 games since the Harden trade, and they've beaten the Nuggets twice. And the Clippers hadn't beaten the Nuggets in ages before that. So the Clippers are to be taken seriously, and the Thunder we've talked about already. So I think there are legitimate threats to the Nuggets, whereas last year, the only threat I saw to the Nuggets winning a title were Milwaukee and Boston, both in the East. This year, there's 3 teams in the West that could beat the Nuggets, and there's 1 team in the East, Boston, that could beat the Nuggets, 2 if Joel Embiid's healthy, which he's not. So I really am concerned with the fact of, can the Nuggets repeat? But it's not because of the internal issues of the Nuggets. I think the internal issues of the Nuggets are solvable. They're just going to play their starters and more in the playoffs, and they'll be fine.
Expect everybody to play 35 to 40 minutes.
Right, but the problem is, can the Nuggets be on the same level as these other teams, because these other teams are now on the Nuggets level?
Yeah. No, and I think one of the other big factors, for me at least, is going to be, can they stay healthy? And with Jamal, with KCP, with even, it feels like Nikola Jokic is dealing with that lower back pain. Like, that doesn't just go away when you're as tall as Nikola Jokic is. Like, you have to put a lot of work into staying healthy, at his size. So I think that being injury prone, to be honest, is going to play into it. And that comes into the rest that you kind of talked about, where if they don't get rest leading into the playoffs and you're playing all of a sudden 40, 45 minutes, whatever it's going to be, that takes a toll on you. By the time you make it to, the Western Conference Championship, etc., like, your body is exhausted.
Can I just rehash the last sentence that you just had? It's 2024. I never thought we were going to get here. Injury prone. You list these guys. Who didn't you list?
I said Jamal. Oh, MPJ?
Yeah, because MPJ is no longer injury prone. He
made
achieved
it.
You're right. He's played in every game but 1 this year.
Yeah.
MPJ's been awesome, and he deserves credit for that. That's why I wanted to point it out, because every time we were doing the injury prone thing, it was MPJ. Can he stay healthy? It'll break the Nuggets free. You're completely right, Rachel.
But can MPJ put the team on his back to win a championship?
No.
That's where the problem lies.
He's not that guy. And the thing is with the Nuggets, obviously it's health, but they're going to be more prone to injury because of the amount of minutes they played in the last year or so. What will benefit them a lot is they only played 20 games in the playoffs last year. Like, they went through the playoffs so quickly. It will help them come this season. But last year, if you remember correctly, everyone was freaking out down the stretch because the Nuggets were losing to the Houston Rockets, and they didn't care, and they looked like a mess. They did that on purpose. They were resting guys. They didn't really care about Jokic's MVP. They wanted to go into the playoffs well rested. They are not going to be afforded that opportunity this year. They're not up 4 or 5 games in the Memphis Grizzlies like they were last year. And if you remember when the Avs won too, Rachel.
This is exactly where I was going to go.
It's the exact thing the Avs did in their final weeks of the regular season too. They were resting. Everyone was like, oh, they're broken, blah, blah, blah. Then they just came out on fire in the playoffs.
But here's the other thing. Look at the Avs last year as they were trying to make the playoffs. Do we remember that Nashville game that they had that was rescheduled, and all of a sudden they get the win, but it literally exhausted them so much that they go into the playoffs and everyone's like, oh no, they look terrible, and then all the Val Nichushkin stuff happens. But that's one of the same worries that I have for this Nuggets team, is that they won't have that same luxury because of how, much better the West has essentially gotten, and you kind of are a little nervous around that.
Thankfully for the Nuggets, and I'm gonna do some schedule talk, which I know everyone loves.
Love it.
Their final 5 games of the season are home against Atlanta,
beautiful, terrible,
at Utah.
Okay.
Their big one is home against Minnesota, which could decide for first or second.
Happy it's at home though.
Right, and then at San Antonio and at Memphis. So 4 teams that could miss the playoffs. Out of those, so you are gonna get a rest. But right before that, you also play the Clippers for your last time. So you have 2 big games in your final 6 this season. Where the Nuggets need to do their damage, Rachel, it's Wizards to start. Portland at Golden State, who's playing a lot better, but still not a great team. Sacramento, who you need to get revenge on, and you should. They're not a great team. Finals rematch against the Heat, who have struggled this year. Lakers have struggled this year. You're on the road against the Lakers.
Is this LeBron's last year?
In LA, yes, but not in the NBA.
Okay. Another conversation.
And then you've got Phoenix, Boston, Utah, Toronto, Miami, San Antonio. So you've got Boston coming up. You've got some interesting games. The finals rematch, that's going to mean something. And you've got the Lakers, who always want to kick your butt. But none of the schedule the Nuggets have ahead of them is that tough. And beyond that, They only have 2 more back-to-backs the rest of the regular season, and one of them's Thursday and Friday.
Praise for that, though. Holy cow. I feel like we've been talking about back-to-backs literally all season long. It just feels like the schedule makers were like, they're the reigning champ. It's going to be fine.
So point being, whether or not the Nuggets are going to have the ability to rest their guys, which they're going to have to stress towards the end of the season if they want their seeding to be correct, right?
Yep.
They're still going to get some rest naturally because their schedule opens up a lot in the last 25 games.
Okay, well, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, plenty more conversations to be had. All you can hope, though, is that the Nuggets can stay healthy. That's going to be the big thing. Continue getting those minutes together because, you're essentially not going to be able to really utilize your bench all that much like they were a little bit last year. Things are a little bit tougher on that front. Jay Williams, though, you obviously watch women's college basketball. You watch women's hoop in general.
I'm a huge WNBA and women's college basketball fan. Obviously, the girls up in Boulder, I've been going to games. I'm going to
be fascinated by their March Madness run.
Oh my God,
it's going to be interesting.
I was so upset today because they fell a little bit in the rankings. They deserve to. They lost. Yeah. But they're flirting with a top 4 seed, and if you get a top 4 seed in women's basketball, you get to host the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
So I'm just got my fingers crossed. I'm like, I want to see these girls at home. I want to root them off. So
what J.R. Payne has done up there. So good. Honestly, I cannot wait for March Madness. I'm like, let's get this thing rolling. We're in like a dead zone, it feels like, with obviously All-Star Weekend. Also, real quick, All-Star Weekend, be done with it, cut it, move on to something else, or are you actually a fan?
I love All-Star Weekend.
Oh, unbelievable.
Love
Jake,
it.
why? My friend.
I don't think you just take it as the competition. Like, it's just a bunch of guys goofing around and like whatever. Like,
so you like it for the social aspect?
Yeah, I'm not expecting much out of the All-Star game itself. The slam dunk contest this year was horrible, but the 3-point shooting contest was really fun.
True.
And the Sabrina stuff was awesome. It was awesome to see Sabrina Ionescu on that stage.
Yeah.
I watched the WNBA All-Star game when that happened, and she made that record, and it was just so fun to watch. And then she comes back and she outshoots every single player in the NBA this year except for Steph Curry. Like, that's fantastic.
Amazing. And I do like that relationship too. And I like their main focus point is saying like, hey, we're trying to prove a point that, these women can keep up with the men. And it is pretty amazing. And the fact that she shot from the NBA 3-point thing, it's a whole conversation about. Anyways, though, the point I'm getting to is Jay Williams goes on, and Caitlin Clark obviously broke the NCAA scoring record last Thursday. Jay Williams goes on and says that
NCAA, not women's college basketball history. There's actually been a higher score in women's college basketball history, but because the NCAA is sexist, they didn't recognize women's college basketball till Title IX. I'm just pointing that out.
I appreciate it. It is important, those types of things. But Jay Williams essentially goes on and says, you can't be considered great until you win championships, because that's what it's all measured on. And he calls Caitlin Clark essentially not great. And I feel like anybody that's watched her play, you're sitting there going, she's an amazing basketball star. You're right. I am sitting here saying she's amazing. She's talented. I love what she's been able to do for the sport. But I have never once used the word great. And I don't think I haven't meant that, because she is a great basketball player. Don't get me wrong. But it's just not one of those words that I threw out right away. So then when he says she's not great because she hasn't won any championships, I noticed that I myself have never called her great. And it caught me kind of by surprise. When you hear somebody talk about something and then you look back and you do a little self-reflection, and I'm like, wait, why have I never called her great in that sense?
Maybe because she's 21 years old, 22 years old. Like that's part of it too. Like, I have a hard time calling college athletes great just because of that.
Yeah.
But if you're basing it off rings, that's ludicrous. Like Iowa women's basketball, Rachel. They were in March. They were in the Final Four last year. They went to the title game.
And they have a long history too.
No, they don't. They're not a great program. They're good.
I was going to say, they've been in the tournament many, many times.
Yeah, but Caitlin Clark could have gone to UConn. And she would have won national titles by now. Would that have made her great? Or does she putting her hometown team on the map and being the best she could possibly be? To me, that makes her greater than the possibility of joining UConn. To me, she's still not the greatest college basketball player of all time. Sue Bird is, and part of that is based off rings. But to not call Caitlin Clark great, sure, it's a futility and adjectives and what words we use. But she's obviously great. She's going to have her own shoes after her. She's going to be a top 3 pick in the WNBA
she just
draft.
passed Shapiro
I hope
for
she
NIL.
falls to number 3 because the Chicago Sky draft 3.
Jake started bringing his hometown in just a smidge.
Yeah, a little bit. I was so mad that Paige Buckers is coming back, because that means there's less chance that Caitlin's going to go number 3.
Fair.
I know, that's how into this I am. But yeah, she's obviously obviously a fantastic player. She's great. I just hated that because, like, is Charles Barkley not one of the greatest NBA players of all time? He didn't win a ring.
Yeah,
In baseball, was Clayton Kershaw not one of the greatest pitchers of all time until he won his ring?
Agreed.
I just don't get the rings culture thing. When we're going to the all-time greats and you're going, who's one of the 5 best, 10 best players of all time, maybe that enters the conversation. And I guess Caitlin Clark has put herself on that stage in college basketball. But she's great already.
Yeah.
Is she the greatest? Again, for me, that's when rings enter the conversation. But it's not the precursor to make you great.
Initial great.
Right.
It's the can you be one of the greatest of all time?
Yeah, and that's where we're at with Jokic. Like that's why it's like, all right, these MVPs matter to me, and they should matter to Nuggets fans because at the end of the day, when we're going, is Jokic one of the greatest 5 basketball players of all time? These MVP things are going to matter. We're going to go, he won X amount of MVPs, X amount of championships. He's obviously great. He was great before he won the title.
How many records has he broken? You know what I mean?
Right.
There's so many things.
And that's Caitlin Clark right now.
Yeah.
She's last year Jokic. She is great. She just needs some team accomplishments to go with it. And by the way, her team's okay.
Yeah.
But her team's not. It's kind of like the Nuggets.
2 things on what you said, which cracks me up. Because, like, Iowa's made the tournament for, like, multiple times, like, in his career. So you're sitting there like, no, they're not that great. They're not a UConn. Where I'm sitting here thinking of, like, Colorado State women's basketball, right? Where I'm like, I think they've made it a few times in like the history of
or even see women's basketball post 90s until JR the last couple of years. I understand what you're saying. It's a good program, but we're talking about, the Boston Celtics, the Los Angeles Lakers, the same thing for women's basketball, UConn, LSU, South Carolina. I was nowhere near that. And for your team to go from being a perennial playoff or tournament team in this case to being one of those true contenders, that's a harder step than the first step. And that's where Caitlin Clark has gotten Iowa. And that to me is so impressive, especially because, again, no hate to her teammates. It's not like she's surrounded by other 5- and 4-star athletes.
Agreed. The other thing, though, that you said on that, and which I love, is you're right, she could have gone to like UConn. Right? When she probably could have rolled and they would have won a championship, whatever. But because she chose to stay with Iowa, all it makes me go back to, and you probably will remember this, Kevin Durant being like, I don't know why I'm not considered one of the top 5 or something along those lines. I don't remember the exact quote. And everyone was like, it's because you went and you just chased the ring with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. And like that was the major thing against him. Where in this, we flip the sides and it's actually like one of the things against Caitlin Clark that you look at and you're like, yeah, I'm actually happy you didn't try and go join the big dogs and you did it without doing that.
Yeah, I'll never say a bad word about KD because the fact of the matter is he was already one of the 10 best players in basketball at that point, and then he was the best player on that Golden State Warriors team, even though it was Steph's team. He was the one who won a Finals MVP. So Kevin Durant, definitely one of the 10, 15 greatest NBA players of all time, without a doubt, and people that don't consider him are just salty about him doing the smart thing, which, by the way, was joining the best team for him at that time. Yeah. And you know what?
People don't like that to create super teams, though. People don't like that.
Because people are fans and they're not happy that someone's team is better than theirs. Yeah. If the Denver Nuggets had the opportunity to trade for Luka Doncic tomorrow and we did it, everyone in the NBA would be upset.
Oh yeah, but here we'd be
on.
Also, I love that relationship. They crack me up watching All-Star. So funny when he poured water down Luka's neck. I was dying. I was like, this is like Jokic is a pretty serious dude a lot of the time. Like you and I see him at media and he's like, he'll answer your questions, like whatever, occasionally throw you a few jokes. We saw that in like the postseason. But the fact that he would go and pour water like down his shirt or his jacket, whatever he was wearing, it like cracks me up.
I know you well enough to know you didn't see this based off what you just listed as your top moment. Luka and Jokic schemed to put Steph Curry under the basket, then Jokic dunked over him.
No, I didn't
during
see that.
Warm-ups.
Wait, I saw though. Everyone was also talking about the fact that I can't remember which player it was. He walked up to Luka and was like sitting there talking, and everybody was making fun.
Jalen Brunson.
Thank you. And they were making fun of Jokic, and essentially they were like, "Yeah, he looks like the guy that his best friend just started talking to somebody new, and he was all hurt." Like there were so many great clips that came out of All-Star Weekend with those two alone.
And then you have Jokic on top of it all saying, I love Denver. I'm never leaving Denver.
Amazing.
But if Luka gets pissed
at Dallas,
he can come here
to Denver. That'd be crazy.
It would be awesome.
I don't even know how that could happen.
It would probably require Jamal Murray and one of AG or MPJ. The Nuggets don't have any draft picks to trade. So it's very unlikely. But the thing is, Dallas has done just about everything they possibly could have done to put them on the outs in their relationship with Luka. So if Luka gets in a situation like Dame did last year, where he's like, trade me to Miami and only to Miami, didn't end up working out. But if Luka can pull that, if Luka wants to become that guy, that villain, like,
What can happen?
It could happen.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a relationship between the two. And I don't think Jokic is into the hubbubaloo of the behind-the-scenes NBA stuff that all these other guys are into.
Agreed.
But the fact that the door is open for Luka, I think there always is going to be, if it doesn't happen, a what if in the back of Denver sports people's minds. Is like, what if those two teamed up? And, Rachel, I'm going to say this. This is the clip. I'm just going to say this. Everyone says Jokic is done at the end of this contract. He's going to retire. He's done with basketball. The scenario in which I see Jokic extending his career and wanting to stay in the NBA is if Luka Doncic was on the Denver Nuggets.
One of his best friends came to the Denver. Wouldn't that be something? All right, I'm going to go check out that clip that you just told me because I definitely need to see it. But Jake, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Of course.
All right, everybody, thank you for hanging out with us here on Coffee Break. We will be back tomorrow, 12 p.m. Mountain Time. Come hang out with us, and we'll see you guys later. Bye, everybody.